All right, please start your presentation.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes,
Ma'am,
Dai. Yes, Dai.
murag si Kuan pay una, ma'am, si Pakubas usabog.
Okay, sige. Go ahead. Thank you. Share your screen. Pakubas.
Ma'am,
Mm-mm. And proceed with the presentation. Thank you.
so makita ma'am?
Yes.
Kita naman. So, good morning ma'am. Good morning classmates. I will be discussing how many samples of handwriting are needed. So, how much is enough? Enough to show the range of handwriting characteristic of the writer. To obtain sufficient handwriting exemplars, at least 20 to 25 signatures of 4 to 5 pages of handwriting or handprinting. Manobra ko mo? Down yung very bad. Manobra? Yes, pa. So, the type of case determines the number of exemplars that the document examiner needs for comparison with the question document. So, the numbers of examples or exemplars or the range of it will determine the main case of a specific situation or in other words, depende siya sa gidaganon sa examples para ma-determine ang main case. Next is always try to collect as many samples as possible because it is more important to have suitable undisputed samples than a large quantity of little comparable value. Cases have been won in court using a single known signature to support the authenticity of a question document. So always collect suitable or high-end samples rather than a large variety of low-valued samples. So they stated here as mas maayo ang gamay or jutay nga samples basta accurate or suitable kaysa daghan pero dili makasupport sa statement. So next is one signature is sufficient when all the characteristic of handwriting match. When proving that an individual did not write a question document, it is necessary to obtain a larger range of writing and 100 signatures may not be enough. An average would be 20 to 25 signatures and 4 to 5 pages of normal handwriting and or handprinting preferable written or at different times. So dapat one signature mumatch siya sa tanan nga handwritings para mo valid siya bisag unsa pa ka bisag unsa pa siya kadagan og dili siya mo match ma-invalid siya. So then in writing large variety dili enough ang 100 signatures. Dapat 20 to 25 signatures o 4 to 5 para sa normal writings or handwritings nga gilain-lain og sulat. Then next is more known documents are needed if the writer has a wide range of variation of or an oversimplified signature, while only a few signatures would suffice if the writer is consistent. An oversimplified signature is one that contains few changes of direction and is usually an illegible scroll. Oversimplified signatures are easier to imitate than more complex signatures that contain more changes of direction and the more stylish letter forms. So in more documents, it is needed if the writer has a wide range of variation, an oversimplified signature because oversimplified signature is one that contains few changes of direction. And in other part, few signatures would suffice if the writer is consistent. If writer ka nya ganahan kag more known documents mas maayo og wide range siya and wala kayoy usog-usog sa iyang writing format. So next is when a question doc signatures show obvious signs of forgery not present in the known signature, one known signature should be enough to prove no genuineness. Forged writing often contains tremor or has a drawn look. So if there is question signatures or kadua-dua nga or kay nainala nga perma, kinahanglan ra siya usa ka genuine or tinuod nga perma para ma-prove o put together ang pirma para mapamatuod nga tinuod ang pirma. Then, next is, a single signature would be sufficient to determine the facts when the question signatures are written with a higher skill level than the suspected writer could execute. However, it is better to have more exemplars whenever possible. The document examiner must evaluate the exemplars to determine if she has sufficient suitable material to render an accurate opinion. So, ang usa ka pirma kay makasupport na siya sa facts kung ang pirma kay gisulat sa higher skill level kaysa sa suspected writer. So, pero mas maayo kung daghan ang examples ang ma-provide. So, next is, maro ko ma'am, akong finish yan.
All right, thank you. Kindly open your camera. Now, let's give your classmates an opportunity to ask questions, clarifications on the presentation that you have made. Okay, go ahead, Nika.
Ma'am, I just want to clarify kay at first he said ma'am na too much having kuan ma'am sample kay ma-invalidate ahang kuan result, then at the end di nga na pud siya nga mas maayo if daghan og sample.
Okay, kindly answer, Pakubas.
Itong sa kwan sa daghang nga samples kung dili siya tugma sa kung 100 ka siya ka samples niya di siya tugma sa uban nga samples di siya magkwan kaning di siya kayo kusog kay nagka-rumble man ang imong examples nga gikuan gisulat or gi handwriting. So kaning kwan napoy uban nga mas maayo ang jutay kay kuan siya tugma siya sa tanan nga gisulat dito nga kuan sa handwriting.
Okay, this is just a simple advice. Whenever you report, do not translate it. Okay, if you will just do simply translation, you will not really get the essence of the topic that you are presenting. What is given here is that whenever the bottom line here with regards to presentation made by Pakubas is that when you, di ba, giskutan ni nato, when you do collect exemplars, you need to make sure that you need to look for exemplars na somehow, as much as possible, similar to the disputed or question document. Di ba? That is the main concern. Number one main concern of a question document examiner. All right. So if the question or disputed document is written in a bond paper, you as a question document examiner or investigator should look for an exemplar with nga collected or informal type of exemplar that is also written in a bond paper. If it is written using, if the question document is written using a pencil, as much as possible, you need to look for informal exemplars that are also written using a pencil. Same goes with if it is written with a ball pen. Kung 0.8, as much as possible, you need to look for a similar informal document. So, as much as possible, ganun as much as possible ang gigamit nga term. Because we cannot really assure that we can really look an identical writing instrument, an identical paper. So, munang imong buhaton as a question document examiner or investigator is to look for an informal exemplar in the cases of your collected standards nga kapari-pariha. Okay. Katong gi-mention ganina ni Pakubas nga mas maayo pa ang jutay kaysa daghan. Unsa may basis ana? What's the point? What's the point of collecting informal standards nga dili na pwede nimo magamit? Remember nga naatay mga standards, naatay guidelines in collecting of exemplar. Dapat as much as possible that aside from the fact that kung mahimo the same material, the same writing instrument, another thing that you need to look at, all right, another thing that you will need to look at in terms with the collection of exemplar is the date. Do not go beyond 5 years. Kung mahimo gani, do not go beyond 3 years. Because there are a lot of things that might happen kung ato nakas lagyo nakaayo nga date. As much as possible, you need to look for exemplars that are written on the same week, on the same day, on the same month, or on the same year. But if you are left of no option, just do not go beyond 5 years. Pero kanaging 5 years, layo na kay kaya na. Katong giingon niya ganina nga mas maayo pa ang usa ka exemplar rather than having too many. Okay. Ani na siyang bottom line ana. The main point in terms with the collection of the number of standards needed is that you need to have an adequate number. You need to have an adequate number. Having one specimen, having one standard or exemplar is not enough. Gi-emphasize ra ni diri naray certain paragraph nga niingon that it's better to have one as long as all of the characteristics are present. That will only happen kung wala na jud kay laing makitaan. Because remember, nabi limitations in terms with the collection of exemplar. Because it will also depend on the nature of job. There are jobs that requires more writing. There are jobs that do not even require writing. Do you get my point? And we have discussed that in our previous discussion. Another thing, in terms with your signature, mojo na siya, tinuod na siya. In terms with your signature, do not create a formal signature that is very simple. Do not create a signature that is very simple. Or oversimplified is the term. Nga naman, mas dali siyang i-forge. If your signature is complicated, with more embellishment like just the sa tawag na signature of your handsome din, oh, 'di ba? O sa to pero mas yung handsome din. Di mo ngisis Abril kay di siya mo confirm atong handsome. Okay? So, lantawan na pero mas yung handsome din. Oh, 'di ba? There are a lot of embellishment pila daghan na kaana-ana niyang gibutang, and that is good because the more nga dagang embellishment, what is the other term for embellishment? Decoration. Kung dagang pachar-char decoration in yung handwriting, the better. Aside from its aesthetic purposes, another purpose niya is to provide more security on your signature. Again, ang embellishment, it's not only for aesthetic purposes. Another purpose niya is for security itself. Security in a sense that it would be harder for the forger to imitate your formal signature. Okay? So kung mahimo jud ha, kinahanglan if you will become a question document examiner, okay, you need to look for an adequate number of exemplars. Adequate of number of exemplars allows you to conduct as many examinations as you needed. Okay? If your examination is not limited kay tungod you were able to get an adequate number of standards, then you will be able to provide a concrete conclusion. Follow-up question for Mr. Pakubas. Follow-up question for Mr. Pakubas? Wala? Or, okay, sige. I'll call na lamang. Let's have Almosora. Follow-up question to Mr. Pakubas.
No, ma'am. Wala ako ikuan, ma'am. Clarification sa iyang report, ma'am.
Alright. How about Salvador? Kwandong, question on the
Okay na, ma'am.
presentation made by
Wala
Pakubas.
naman. Okay na, ma'am. Wala okay question.
Alright, so let's give a round of applause to our first reporter. Bitter people, let's give a round of applause. Thank you, Mr. Pakubas. Ayaw libdong na. Alright, thank you. Now let's listen to the presentation of Miss Naingo.
Makita ra akong screen, ma'am.
Yes, very visible. Kumayo na to tanang reports karon na.
So, good morning everyone. Good morning, ma'am. I am Julian Laingo, and my assigned topic is suitable exemplars. So, what is suitable exemplars? A suitable exemplars are the writings that are known and appropriate standard that serves as a model or example for investigation. So, these are the known writings ideally obtained from the original author itself that is serving as an example used for comparison with a question writing. So these are there are four example of documents that make a suitable exemplars. The first one is cancelled checks, second is contracts, third is applications, and the last one is business letters. So what is koan? Let's define first what is cancelled checks. A cancelled check is a check that has been paid by the bank after the customer has authorized. And contracts is an agreement between private parties creating mutual obligations enforceable by law. And applications is a formal request to an authority for something, and a business letters is a formal document of often sent from one company to another or from a company to its clients, employees, and stakeholders. For example, business letters are used for a professional correspondence between individuals as well. So, what makes them a suitable exemplars? Simply because the writing inside it is clear and can be properly identified, and the date can be easily verified, and the habits of the writer can be studied. So, the additional standards like informal or collected standards and formal or request writing may be needed if the words on the disputed writing do not match with the exemplars. So, this is the example of cancel checks. As you will see, the date, the writing inside it is clear. Uh, the next one is original writing is better than a photocopy. So let's define first what is original writing. It is any form of writing which is individual, novel, journal, or unusual. Photocopy or facsimile, it is an exact copy, especially of printed or written material produced by a process involving the action of light, specially prepared surface. So the reason on why original writing is much better than a photocopy is that original writing is more defined. You can properly identify its writings, the dates, and everything that a document contained. Unlike a photocopy, whenever there is a subsequent generation, there there is a subsequent generation of it, the other sufficient detail may disappear. For example, kanang magpa-photocopy ta kadaghan like dili na siya maklaro kay mikatag na ang ink and ma-altered na ang information inside that document. So, and because of that, using them as a source for comparison or rendering them will be worthless to a competent document examiner. That's why if it is impossible to obtain the original documents, try to have the first generation of photocopies so that the information inside is still clear and defined. So, handwriting identification depends on the quality of the known writing. So, like what I have said earlier, that it is so necessary that the known writing would be of the original document or the first generation of photocopy, not the ones that sufficient details is scanned, because it will be so hard for you to identify the difference between the two specimen if that happens, and it's possible that your investigation will be no use inside of the court. So handwriting can be compared. I cannot be compared with hand printing. So uh, it should be noted that uh, it should be noted that you will compare the same specimen. So handwriting is different from hand printing. Handwriting is like handwriting is like a cursive writing, and the hand printing it is like there is a sufficient space between the letters. so that comparing both will be so hard for the examiner to determine its difference. So much better if you will compare the same specimen. Documents similar in nature will make the best exemplars. So contracts should be compared with contracts and cancelled checks with cancelled checks. Uh, an A should be compared with an A, and people often have more than one. So the reason for this is that if you will compare, try to think of it. If you will compare that document to another document, then it will be no use. Like your comparison will be no use because they are not the same. So it is better if you will compare the same or documents that is similar in nature. So do not use signatures written while the writer was intoxicated unless the question documents were written under similar circumstances. So um, the reason for this is that intoxication affects the physiological being of a person. That's why the manner of handwriting is also affected. So much better if the person will write the signature is not intoxicated. So how much is enough? It is also done by Pakubas. So how much is enough? It is a enough to eliminate any other writer as the author of the document. We also discussed this that there is no set of standard to constitute a sufficient number. That instead it's up to the expert. So to say what constitutes a sufficient number that would be enough to correct the disputed document. So it is also discussed by Ma'am Gipel that an adequate number of exemplars that would allow you to kuan a as many examination as needed. That's all, ma'am.
All right, very good. Okay, so now let's have Pilazo question for the reporter. Kindly open your cam.
Ah,
You need to
get
ask question.
for me, mamula ra ko'y question, ma'am.
Dili na siya pwede. You need to ask question. I am grading the quality of question that you are giving. What's your question, Pilazo?
Ah, for kuan, ma'am. For yung ah, lainggo, what is the best to do to compare the standard or original documents compared to the imitated one? What is the process to do? The requested or the I
Pardon,
mean
Mads?
Again,
in padungog ra, ma'am.
go down.
In For you in detecting the standards or original documents, what can you do if there's a imitating one na same rasad also sa original documents? Unsa may best nga buhaton to detect that there's a imitating one is prove gid siya nga ma-imitate siya.
Thank you so much, Mads. So actually, I don't think that question is related to my report, but I will answer. So, what would you do if the what would you do if the kuan like the original is
Ah,
the same to the kuan like
ah,
collected standards? Or
yes, yes.
so that's why we have a that's why it is so important for the I mean the document examiner to collect as many as writing or as many as collected standards in order to determine the differences. It is impossible that you do, as a document examiner. I know that they can determine the difference between the original and the I mean the katong gisuhid if they are going to collect as many as they can in order to eliminate the katong kuan man katong the author of the like the author of the kanang gisuhid ra nga writing.
All right.
Based
Mm-mm, that's true.
Okay, ma'am.
But in terms, in addition to the, in addition and in relation to the question of Pilazo, katong kabahin sa imitation, that is the reason why if the collected exemplar or informal exemplar is not enough to prove the no the claim of imitation as what was raised by Pilazo, that is why the question document examiner can also do the formal exemplar, which is the requested standards. Okay, remember that doing the requested standard is not automatic. You need to ask permission from the court. But if the subject is will voluntarily provide, that is why you do have your other exemplar, which is the post letem motam exemplar. Nika, what's your question? Follow-up question,
Yes,
Pilazo. Good?
Okay na ma'am, good na ma'am.
All right, good. How about Nika? What's your question to the presenter?
yes, ma'am. Does suitable exemplars only varies cancelled check, contracts application, and business letter, or do we need consider other document as long as it is not beyond 5 years?
Yes, yes. These for exemplars is not the only basis in which you can say that that is an a suitable exemplars. As long as the writings on it is a proper I can be properly identified and the date can be verified and the habits of the writer can be studied, then that would make a suitable exemplars. That's it.
All right. Good answer. Okay, so it only shows that Laingo really prepared for her presentation. Very good, Laingo. Congratulations. Okay, let's
Thank you,
give her
ma'am.
a round of applause, please. I am very impressed with her presentation. Okay, very good, Laingo. So now let's proceed to our next presenter. Cases in which no exemplars are needed.
Ma'am.
Okay, share your screen. Thank you so much. Is the presenter around?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right.
Oh, it's makita ra, ma'am.
Yes, game. Very visible. Tsada lagi
Okay.
ni.
So, good morning, everyone. Good morning, ma'am. My assigned topic is about cases in which no exemplars are needed. So, So these are the cases in which no exemplars are needed. We have here trace perjuries, scan signatures, freehand simulations, cut and paste signature. So first, I will going to define what is perjury. So a perjury is a legal term which involves not only a non-genuine document but also an intent to fraud. However, it is also used synonymously with fraudulent signature or spurious document. So the question is why these four cases don't need to have an exemplar. The reason why these cases don't need exemplars simply because it is already falsified. So in this case, no need to prove its spuriousness. So it is useless or it may be useless for the question document examiner to request an exemplar wherein the document itself is involving fraudulent signatures. So as we can see in the cases, it involves fraudulent signatures. So note that signs of perjury are indicative of no genuineness. So documents that contain indications of tracing can be identified without known signatures simply because we can determine if it is lacking of strokes. So the best example here is the trace perjuries, wherein it is not merely writing but a rather drawing. So kabantay mo like mosuid mo og signature is mura ra mo gadrawing mura mo inyo murag inyong gidrawing ang ang signature. So in here ma-identify ninyo nga mawala ang iyang line of strokes, and you also observe some tremors on the signature. So it is easily to identify without basing it to the original signature. Then request writing. Request writing exemplars are handwriting samples made at the request and under supervision of the police. Police, document examiners or attorneys for comparison with questioned writing. The writer is asked to complete forms containing all the uppercase and lowercase letters plus members of punctuation marks. So, care must be taken to ensure that the request writing is suitable for comparison purposes since the writer may attempt to disguise his writing. So, the examiner must be vigilant and must ensure that the writer may not disguise his handwriting so that the request writing can be suitable for comparison purposes. Normal writing is a result of subconscious habit. The quality of writing is recognized by repeated significant characteristic executed with ordinary attention to the writing act. Certain precautions can ensure that the exemplars are suitable. So the document examiner should take the request writing exemplars whenever possible. The examiner is then in a position to determine if the writing is normal writing or if the writer is trying to disguise his handwriting. Lawyers frequently have their clients write their name 10 times on a sheet of paper. This is not an appropriate handwriting. So when taking the request writing samples, follow established procedures. Use a dictation that contains all of the letters of the alphabet as well as the numerals. So as we have discussed previous meeting, in requesting a handwriting sample, it must be an dictation form so that the writers may not disguise his handwriting. And after writing, each specimen will be collected, and it must also have a signature in it to prove that it is his writing. So, in taking a request handwriting exemplars, just follow the suggested procedure. That's all, ma'am.
All right, good, good, good. Remember, Magod, in terms with forgery, though in the revised penal code, what we will see is only the word forgery. Pero looking at the kanang question document examination, forged signatures are divided into three classifications. The other one is simple forgery. When you say simple forgery, kanang imurang kung anon, suhiron. Though you were not able to copy the exact facsimile or full characteristics of of the model signature, pero imo na siyang gisuwid, or probably like for example ang gibutang diya ang mo sign is Dean, nya ikaw dili ka authorized nga mo sign, nya ikaw mo butang sa imuhang initials, that is still considered as simple forgery under question document examination. Yeah, wala ka mo namoy permahan dili nyo ngalan, butang higbay or for ana ba, dili pwede nga direktaon ninyo. Kay if something happens, goodbye good mo. Ana na siya ha. And you need to remember, most especially if it is a contract, it is a letter, basta any form of business or office transaction, always make sure to secure your separate copy. Para if ever there are problems, pwede ka makaklaim. Kanang kabati mo ng mga document na yung mga received by. So when you do transact, always get a secondary copy for your own protection and for your own claim if there are predicaments in the future or claims in the future. Another thing, aside from simple forgery na apo tay gitawag nga indented. Yeah. And what was presented by the presenter, Miss Abril, is what we call indented writing. When you say indented writing, these are not really writing honestly. These, motong gi-emphasize ni Abril, nga ang tawag ana is drawing, not writing. Okay, there are many ways in order to do that. Kanang kabantay mo anang, 'di ba kanama ni mga rubber stamp, pwede mong magpahimo og signature nga naka rubber stamp. Pwede jud kayo aside uban kay ngalan raman nila yung pagkahuman ila na permahan. Pwede pug imuhang pwede pug imuhang pahimuan og rubber stamp imong signature. Okay, and if ever your rubber stamp signature is utilized without your approval, then that will fall as an indented writing. Another thing, another thing, giduplicate imong naay gipapirmahan sa imua, gibutangan og unsay tawag ani? Kabantay mo anang for kanang mo taya og swertres. There's a carbon paper. Oh, kana. Oh, without your no, without your knowledge or without even informing you as the owner of the signature that the document will be kana bang one signature pero multiple copies siya kay gibutangan in between. Kaya dapat if that happens, the signature or the owner or the person involved should be informed. Ana magud na siya. So if ever that happens, then without your knowledge, then that will fall to indented or kato yang giingon lagi indented forged type of signature. Or another, wala tuod gigamitan og carbon paper in between. Pero kabante mo na musulat mo, labi niya if your pen pressure is very heavy, mulama imuhang signature on the second page. So if ever that happens, pagka man suwiro nimo ang signature ka i-follow na siya in a form of drawing kanang na-indent mo siyang gitawag siya indented writing kay ni lama or gipalama. Do you get my point? Okay, mo nang gitawag indent. Okay? So, if ever that happens, that is still considered as forgery. And that is true, it is not in a form of writing, but merely in a form of drawing. Another thing, another last type of forged signature, kanang gitawag na freehand or simulated signature. Forged signatures. This is a type of signature which is done by professional forgers. Nga kung imuhang lantawon without conducting an in-depth examination, may ngunggog ka, ay, iyaha guning pirma, ay, tinuod ni. Kaya nga naman, it's really, able to copy the facsimile of or characteristics of the model signature. But in the conduct of a thorough handwriting examination, and if laboratory examination is criminalistic examination is needed, makita nimo nga naa siya mga ginagmayng abnormal tremors. The reason why in your indented, it's not really necessary nga kinahanglan siya, and sakto itong gi-emphasize ni Abril, dili ra gyud needed ang mga exemplar simply because if you will look at the philosophy, okay, or the reason behind sa ato ang signature, 'di ba? We do not write the same way all the time. Even if the document, even if you will produce 10, 5, 6, or even 4, or even duwa samples of your signature simultaneously on the same setup, your signature will not look the same. That is why part of our handwriting characteristic, part of our individual handwriting characteristic is what we so call natural tremor. Kaya ang atuang handwriting, naago na siya mga ginagmayng deviations. Muna tawag, natural tremor. We do not write the same way all the time. Same as what was emphasized earlier by Judy Ann. If you are drunk, you do not write the same way all the time. If you are sick, you do not write the same way all the time. Samot na, if you are broken-hearted, you do not write the same way all the time. Okay ra na pilaso, kaya mo yan. Nis pilaso, ako kumigabulag. I know. Okay, so now let's have Kapunay. Kapunay, raise one question to our presenter. Open cam, Gwen.
Ma'am, sorry ma'am, putol-putol ka ma'am.
Dong, pangutana ni Abril. One question, please.
Wait sa ma'am.
Okay. Gaunsa daganis kapunay. Let's have Zamora.
Na may question, ma'am. Ma'am? Sobra ka, ma'am.
Yeah, yeah.
Why is dictation important? Why is it important?
So in collecting a handwriting exemplars, uh, it is very important that we should use the dictation form so that the writer may not disguise his handwriting.
All right. How about Ryan? Question, Rai.
Hello, ma'am.
Question dong, question.
One ma'am. Ano yun? That's up, ma'am. Yung, ano sa exemplar, ma'am, ano, is there, case that it can be fake when a person is trying to imitate and pwede na siya ma-fake na yung gipan.
Can you please repeat your question? I cannot really hear you. You're cutting in and out dong. Sige dong, what's your question?
One
Abril,
ma'am.
were you able to get the question of Ryan?
Wala
Hello, ma'am.
sad ma'am.
Usba dong be
Nagputol
usba?
siya ma'am.
Kanang sa exemplar ba, is it, there, na instance nga pwede ma-fake ng a copy of, kanang manuscript of it?
Ang saray, ang
Ang manuscript sa exemplar ba na siya instance nga ma-fake na siya?
Unsa? Manuscript sa?
ma-fake.
Unsa dong?
A copy of ano ba?
Unsa?
Libo po construct sa akong sentence ako ma'am.
Ah, palayo ka, balikan ti ka, wadyo ko sabot sa pangutana. Let's have
Sige po.
Zamora.
Ma'am, stop na ako camera, ma'am.
Mm.
Hindi ang connection, ma'am. Action na po lang. Ah, about your discussion, pwede na explain ko why is there's no needed an exemplar.
Hinay ka buds. Dito ka madungog.
Kana, but okay na.
Sige, sige.
Can you explain it again? Kay hindi ko na akong dogan yun.
Ang
Can
unsa
you
buds?
explain it again that why there is no needed an exemplar?
Okay. So, the four examples that I present don't need to have an exemplar simply because uh, it is already falsified. So, it may be useless for the question document examiner to request an exemplar wherein the document itself is involved a fraudulent signatures.
Okay, but I have a second question also, but about the about writing. Writing. I heard that there is a comparison and there also evaluation on exemp- exemplar, but like similarities and dissimilar
Hmm?
for unknown document.
Hinahinay ka buds. Pas ba daw?
I heard that request writing, but about the request writing, I heard that there is
Ah,
a comparison of the document. Is there also evaluation of the document buds like similarities or dissimilarities.
Uh, in that cases, yes, there is also a comparison that document is uh, if that document is uh, uh, if the document is not genuine or not valid, so we can also request an handwriting to prove its uh, s- to prove whether that document is true or not.
Oh, thank you, buds. Marathon.
Sige, guys.
All right, so let's go back to Legaspi. What's your question?
Fire lang ma'am. Para ni dungog ra ko, klaro ra ko.
Ah,
Ah, why is the writer this this kanang ngano ang writer disguise iyang handwriting? Why what if the writer will disguise his handwriting?
if the writer will disguise his handwriting, it may the handwriting will not be or will not be suitable for the comparison of the original document. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. So let's give our presenter a round of applause, please. Okay, so now let's proceed to our next reporter.
So, ma'am.
Okay, go ahead, share your screen. Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am. Nag-share na ko, guys.
Yes, Dai.
Kita na ba?
So, PDF form ra ni siya kay wala cellphone na mo akong gamit so dili ko ka play o binagsa. So, is my presentation visible to your screen? Hello?
Yes, yes, go ahead.
Yes.
Okay, so again, good morning, Ma'am Jipel, and good morning, classmates. So today, I will be reporting about the do's and don'ts for collecting exemplars and standards. So this is self-explanatory since some of this, or I think all of this, are already waiting. Sorry, may follow akong cellphone. Already discussed by our classmates and also by our instructor. So first, A. Don't rely on too little writing. How much is enough? Enough to show the range of handwriting characteristic of writer. Of course, because according to Ma'am Jipel, um, adequate number is very good in finding the in comparing the original to sufficient number of exemplars because if you rely on too little writing, there are possibilities that you cannot compare. So as what we have learned in our previous discussion that it is better to have sufficient or adequate number of exemplars for the purpose of comparison. But we also we also need to we also need to look for the date which is not which is which means that the exemplars must not go beyond 5 years because there are factors that affecting the changes of our handwriting, and so there are limitations. So that's it. So B, do obtain sufficient handwriting exemplars, at least 20 to 25 signatures or to 5 pages of handwriting. Of course, because if you do have sufficient handwriting exemplars as the examiner, it is easy for you to compare for the original and for the collected exemplars. But if you collect sufficient handwriting exemplars, make sure that these exemplars are somewhat similar to the original, because you cannot compare the original document or exemplar if the exemplar is not or are far from or different from the original document. For example, if you wrote the original document in a white band paper, so you must collect the exemplar which is also written in a white band paper or black ball pen. That's it. So see, don't rely exclusively on writing that differs significantly from the question, because as what I have discussed to you, it is useless to compare the original document to the different exemplars or uh, standards, because you cannot you cannot find or you cannot compare those if the original and the collected exemplars are different from each other. For example, if your original document is written on a white band paper and your exemplars is written um on a or on a yellow paper, then it is not easy for you to look for the different or to look for the similarities uh, of the two. Then D, do collect similar samples: hand printing with hand printing, ink signature with ink signature, line paper with line paper, same size with size, because again, that's what I have discussed on letter C, that it is more easier for the examiner to determine the similarities and the differences between the two, between the original and the collected version, because since the exemplars um is more similar to the original. For example, if it is printing, then you collect also exemplars which is also hand printing. If it is ink signature, then collect exemplars which is also ink signatures. Then line paper with line paper, same size with, so that you can really compare those two um, document. E. Don't rely on documents recently written if the comparison documents were written many years ago. Of course, because at what Manjipal said, that um, there are factors that affecting the handwriting of the person. So if you collect exemplars which is go beyond 5 years, for example, what if that person is um what if that person kay naputlan og kamot or na accident, so then it depends also sa iyang trabaho, so mag-change guna. So as much as possible, do collect or look for exemplars written the same day, month, or year. Okay, so F, do madungog ra ko, naara ko.
Yes, yes.
Yes,
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 ma'am.
Doc.
So F, thank you. Okay, abin ako gwala na. So F, do collect standards dated at approximately same time as the question. So, of course, gyapon, do collect exemplars not beyond 5 years. So collect exemplars that is written on the same day, month, or year for the genuine or for the genuineness of um for you to really compare the differences and the similarities, since there are factors that would affect the handwriting of the person. H, do collect documents that, I mean G, don't compare writing written under abnormal condition, for example, when the writer was intoxicated with normal writing, of course, because when you are intoxicated, you don't know how to write anymore. Kay if you know how to write, then possibly ang imong writing kay dili na siya magkadimao, di ba? So magkawiris-wiris na siya. So don't compare the original writing to the kuan exemplars nga gi write niya when he was intoxicated or under intoxication. So because of course you can compare those two. Then H, do collect documents that duplicate the writing environment, checks with checks, contract with contracts. For example, if the original document is in check form, then look for checks pod to really compare contracts with contracts. Okay. Then I do instruct the writer in order to obtain similar exemplars. For example, print with all uppercase letter. So this is when you request writing, di ba? You dictate man na. So for example, imo man i-dictate. For example, kuan daw ni, you write uppercase letter sa A or sa B or sa inana to really compare if kuan if similar ba gyud or siya ba jud ang right or dili. Then summary, exemplars are known handwriting samples used for comparison with question documents. So we all know that exemplars are the standards for the purpose of comparison. So there are two types of exemplars, formal and informal, which is we discussed in our previous discussion. Then formal exemplars are request writing samples. So it is form of dictating. So when you request formal exemplar or request writing samples, mo siya ang katong i-dictate as what my co-reporter Gwendolyn have discussed in her report. So informal exemplars consist of documents executed in normal course of business. So these are exemplars that is being collected. Then proper procedures should be followed when taking request writing, of course, because if you don't follow the proper procedure in request writing, then there are possibilities that dili ka maka-compare. For example, if ang iyahang gisulatan kay different sa original, so dili jud ka kung compare. So kung unsay yang gigamit na mga materials sa iyang original document mo pud imong ipagamit sa if mag-conduct kag request writing to really compare. So, di ba, as what I have discussed, magkuan pod ang sizes, di ba? So, that's all. I think that's all, ma'am, for the do's and don'ts of in collecting exemplars.
Okay, good. So let's have Kapunay first. Kapunay, what's your question to our presenter?
Ma'am,
Any question?
no questions mo.
All right, very good. But anyways, the presentation was really good. So, ako po, po ko'y kuan, ika-additional because everything was given. Unless some of you na ay additional input on the presentation made by Rodriguez. Anybody? Anybody? News lang ko, dili na. Kaya hapit na pa nyo to, ma'am. Dili na. Sige. Alright, so let's give Nika a round of applause, please. Congrats, Nick. Okay. Alright, so let's proceed to the next reporter. Abot pa tagalaw na dire. Huwag pa yun tuway. Yung pilaso, ma'am. Yun to na ta. Unya ra. Igutom na mo? Okay, so let's continue. Let's have the next presenter. Uy, asa man ni Bray? Asa naman yung imuhang kwan, Bray? Igsuon, Bray? Kamu naman, Bray. Bray. Ryan.
Ma'am,
Open your camera yan. Ryan.
ma'am, gagamit ko sa PC ron ma'am, din wala, may kamera ni ma'am.
Okay, sige. Okay. Kindly share your screen. Inyuhan ang topic, handwriting na. Not prepared?
Ma'am, sa tinuod ugod ma'am, wala. Wala, may last meeting o kuhan ma'am.
Kasi wala nga ako man gihatag.
Gani ma'am, wala, may last meeting ma'am ba?
Ano wala mo last meeting nga naman mo attendance? You were even called, hasta po your brother. You were even confirmed. Am I right, guys?